Hi, welcome to episode 8 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade. And I'm James Eade. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed that when people are upset and you tell them to calm down, they get more upset. And so this is not a command. This is an invitation to calm down with me. Because as a recovering addict, I have had to learn the tools and techniques to calm myself down. And because when you're upset and agitated, you make bad decisions. So remaining calm is essential to someone in recovery. And the tools and techniques that I have learned can be shared because they were taught to me. And I just had to be willing to be open to them, to try them. And when you find out what works for you may not work for me, and what works for me may not work for you, but keep trying, and you will find something that works for you. And for me, it's a deep breath because the body can calm the mind, and the mind can calm the body. And when you figure out it's all integrated, it's all one big package, this type of thing, you realize that there are other issues that are well beyond your control and that you must accept them as best you can. But your response is one thing that you can control because your experiences you cannot control, the stimulus you cannot control, they're going to happen. But you can control your response to them. And the key to me is awareness and then attunement to forces beyond my control that remind me that I do not control the universe and I only can control one small part of it. If I can even manage to do that. So calming down with James Eade is all about doing this together because one of the things in recovery that I have found is that it takes a community. When you try to do it all yourself in your own mind, then these types of things have a track record of failure. Because it does take a community. And part of my disease was isolation. And I didn't want to belong to any club that would have me for a member. But I have found that there are people that have walked this path before and can be of guidance and help. And so when someone reaches out their hand for help, I want my hand to be there. But this is just one part of the outreach that we can do for one another because it takes a community. And find your community. And if you don't find one right off the bat, the first community you try to find, you don't feel it's the right one for you, keep looking because there are multiple communities out there. There is no one size fits all when it comes to recovery. So Calm Down with James Eade is divided up into a couple of segments. This is the introduction, and we're going to segue to someone who has agitation issues. We can say gently without judgment. And we'll talk to Rick about that. And then we'll talk to Yudhishthira, who has the tools and techniques of yoga practice to help us to calm down. Hello, and welcome to season 2, episode 8 of Calm Down with James Eade. And I'm James Eade. And this segment of the show is dedicated to what is getting on our nerves. And I have a special guest who's our nerve management guy, Rick Rosner.
Well, I'm the guy who's angry and doesn't know how to fix it, just stays freaking angry, right?
All
Yeah.
the time,
I'm
huh?
the bad example. And the thing that pisses me off is
Okay.
this time of year. I freaking hate this time of year. It gets anything after Halloween, it gets dark early. And
Yes.
that in LA, well, you're in Northern California. You know that California drivers are not great, and any little thing makes them even worse,
A
including
little rain.
darkness, rain. Oh yeah, rain. And heaven forbid it should ever snow here. That would
Yeah.
be just
That yeah, ice on the road, so they wouldn't
yeah.
know what to do.
Now I've been with the same woman for 38 years.
Mhm.
So that issue has been solved. But I remember like being desperate to in college to try to get a girlfriend in Colorado, where I was going, well, my hometown, um, before, Halloween was the last big party night.
Mhm.
And then winter set in and people didn't go out as much.
Right.
And it would be harder to line somebody. You needed, and there's a term I heard on the radio yesterday. I think it's called nesting, where you try to find somebody for the winter. Um,
To
and I
cuddle
did
up
that,
to.
but if I missed, then it was a long, lonely frickin' winter.
Right.
Plus, this is the time of year where I would fall behind in school. Um, the sun goes. We lived up against the mountains, so the sun went down at like 3:30, quarter of four.
Oof.
Just sucks.
Yeah.
There's a thing called seasonal affective disorder where you
Right.
don't get enough sun, and then you start like overdosing on carbs. You
It
basically
affects your mood. Yeah, it's a serious thing.
yeah. So anyway, plus like every 4 years you have a freaking election.
Right. Yeah. So November shot.
Yeah, and I mean the reason like we have all these tasty holidays. We got Thanksgiving, food, Christmas, food, drink, New Year's, you get drunk, Valentine's, candy, and now we've got the added holiday of Super Bowl Sunday, food. It's just all the food and the drinking is just to get people through the shitty time of year until the days get longer and brighter again.
Yeah, there's no question that daylight is does affect our moods, and one of the things that I try to make sure is I get out early in the morning in the sunlight, and that seems to help me. And it's the same thing with experiencing jet lag. If I go to another country, say England, and we get out first chance we get and get into the sun, and so when it goes away early, as you're describing, it can affect your mood. These holidays, I think, you have trouble. You're not unique, but you're in the minority of people who has trouble gaining weight. So what's your beef with carbs and stuff like that?
I don't have a beef with carbs, except in the first Trump administration, carbs gave me the trots, which was bad.
Right.
I mean, that's Trump from 2017 to 2021. Trump was the reason I couldn't gain weight because I was just shitting all the time. I sharted at the gym. I sharted twice in bed. Sharting, for people who don't know, is when you think you're going to fart and you shit a little bit. It was my butthole was completely unreliable under Trump. I'm hoping it. I'm thinking my butthole's more mature now and can handle it. I'm hoping.
Yeah, this is when tools and techniques can help. And but that is a miserable experience, at the gym or something like that.
Plus, like your wife is not impressed when you shit the bed. She's thinking of the future, like, well, will this old man? Will I be cleaning up his shit like once or twice a day for like 10 years, starting in like 2030?
Right. So has she suggested Pampers or something like
No,
that?
and it was just a little blop. It was easily dealt with. It wasn't like a full like explosion.
Okay. Well, it does seem like we are in shitty times, but what can we do when we're faced with something that we can't change? The thing that I've been taught is to try to accept it, and you don't have to like it, but you can't change it. So accepting it as the reality is just what we're going to experience. So then you don't have to fight against it or wake up in a foul mood or any of those types of things, which I did in 2016, 2017, certainly. And so I'm really working on having an attitude adjustment this time around, and not.
Sorry, they're grinding a tree out the window here. So.
Oh, okay. We can't hear it. So
Okay, good.
I'm sorry it's disturbing you, but so does anything like that help you? Do you have anything that you can rely on to brighten your day? You know, this tattoo is almost worn off. You know, it's one of those things that was be a constant reminder to me that
Yeah,
there's a
but
deeper reality out there than the one that we have
I
to live.
do these little craft projects.
Right,
I
you
used to
mentioned
make
that. Yeah.
fun of the people who go to Michael's arts and crafts store,
Hmm.
saying, well, those are just people who are running away from disappointments in other areas of their lives. And they turn to scrapbooking. And I still believe that, but now I'm one of them.
Well, these are, you know, it's not well, it can be a distraction, but it can be more than a distraction too. It can be a way to put yourself at ease. And and if it takes your mind off of the worries, especially those worries that you can't do anything about, then I think it's useful. And to program that into part of your day seems to me to be, you know, because self-care is not selfish. You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. There's another panacea that I'm a little embarrassed to engage in, which is watching sports.
Uh-huh.
You know, I was terrible at PE. I hated the jocks in junior high. I
Right.
got to like them later when I found, I
Yeah.
started bouncing bars and found out, they were decent people and they often like knew more.
Yeah.
They knew stuff that I didn't know because they'd been like going out with girls for longer because they weren't as geeky as I had been. But like sports is a great distraction.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I,
it's
I had a horrible girlfriend in college. She wasn't horrible, but she was psycho. We were bouncers together. She had every once in a while you run into somebody who's got a ton of testosterone, male or female, to like it's like they're on steroids, but it's just natural.
mhm.
And so she had roid rage. She just naturally had a lot of testosterone. She was better at taking people to the, putting them in a chokehold, taking them to the ground than I was. And she just got angrier and angrier. And
Oh,
so well, and if we had a bad night together, I knew that in the morning, this was the 80s, so you couldn't just like go to the internet to look up sports scores. You had to wait for the morning paper.
I know.
And in the morning I could look and see how Gretzky had done, because this was the year he got like 212 points.
Yeah.
And
It's a
so I
great
knew
one.
that like I could look it up and I'd be excited because he got like 2 goals and 2 assists.
Hmm.
And the Dodgers run for the World Series
Yeah.
was great. My college football team is 8-2. They're gonna disappoint us eventually, but every team does except for the one who.
Right.
But
Right.
it's
Well, you know, the thing about sports, and I think this is something that people who aren't into it don't understand, is it's unscripted drama. You know, you
yeah,
don't know what's going to happen. And so you think you think you have like the stats and all the logic behind it, and this outcome should be easy to predict, but it so often is surprising. And so these surprises can be delightful or demoralizing.
yeah.
So we can
But
get
at
very
least
involved
there's
emotionally.
at least they're a thing that isn't the thing that you're worrying about.
Exactly. Yes. And it does take your mind off. Do you ever go to the theater plays? Do it
No,
they interest you at all?
I lack the patience for theater.
Ah,
I'm spoiled. I'm a baby. Where the my wife used to take me to plays when we lived in New York City,
right.
and the only one that I kind of liked was Starlight Express because I was a roller skating waiter,
Ah,
and the
uh,
Starlight Express was on roller skates, and so I liked that.
uh-huh.
I also was a roller skating bouncer because I didn't give a crap because in roller skates I'm like 6'4",
Yeah,
and I'm a bad fighter, so I'm gonna go if there's a brawl, I'm gonna end up on my ass anyway, roller skates or not. So I might as well at least be 6'4", actual bouncer size, until the violence happens, and then and it's fine to end up on the ground as a bouncer as long as you take somebody with you. if you take, because here's, you never, whether it's a fight between, in the parking lot between, two outside a grocery store, or in a bar, or between two dogs, you never want to wade into the middle and break it up that way, because then you'll get hit by both from each party to the fight. What you do is you come up behind one of the participants and you sweep them away from, and so,
on roller skates, that sounds easier to do.
Well, I didn't sweep, but I'd come up and grab, and then we'd fall down, but then they'd be out of it, and then the other bouncers would take care of some of the other people.
Right.
And which is fine, except that I tended to get bitten while I was on the ground.
Oh gosh. In the 80s, that's not good.
No, like I've only been bitten once in the AIDS era.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? You just reminded me that we were at a Tufts fraternity party and a fight broke out, and then all of a sudden everybody was throwing punches. I was there with a guy who was close to 6'4", and so he was my friend, and we turned and looked at each other, and he slapped me, and we started fighting. So everyone thought that we were, that nobody picked on us because we were already fighting.
Nice. Your friend's a genius.
That was just, I brought it up to him not too long ago, and he didn't remember, but I did.
Oh, I got one more little gripe that everybody has, which is like everything that Trump hasn't yet done, but he's gonna do. Like Trump has no philosophical reason not to govern from the center. He does a lot of shit just to mess with people, just to piss off his haters.
Right.
And I think we could solve a lot of it just by switching out Melania. Now, Melania is not around much, I don't think. But when she is, she agrees with like Trump's instinct for vengeance. She's like, F them. Oh, F them. We would. And like she probably
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if we switched her out with like, a more Jesus-y woman who turned the other cheek, saying, well, they are under, pressures we do not understand. You could do the mean thing, but let's try. But it's just whoever has his ear, right before he goes on camera, is the one who is going to determine what he does, and he surrounds himself with a bunch of like creeps like Stephen Miller.
Right.
And if somehow you could, replace the creeps with, all right, a lot of the generals around him were voices of reason. He didn't like that either. No. But I feel like, I don't know if you could, he's just going to make a lot of, like decisions just to own the libs.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that we play patsies too often by getting upset with him. And that's what he liked. That's the response he's going for. You know? So if we ignored him, we drive him nuts.
We've tried each way because, we get mad at the press for ignoring the crazy crap he does. And then when they report it, we don't like the way they report it.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to please us, is your bottom line.
And he's the first. I don't know. Andrew Jackson seems like a pretty unhinged dude, but I feel like Trump is the first true psychopath we've ever had as president, and they're fairly rare. They're less than 1% of people, probably one person in 300, or so. Nobody's ready for that, and our democracy wasn't ready for it.
Right. It is a challenge, and we'll see if democracy prevails.
Teddy Roosevelt might have been half a psychopath, but he was like a rare psychopath on the side of good, just a maniac.
Yeah. The Rough Riders. My goodness, we can talk for an hour about Teddy Roosevelt, but what an accomplished man in so many ways.
He wrote 49 books. He was just like, he only didn't, he only lived to like 60 or 62, and he did so much in his few years.
Yeah.
And, my favorite thing,
as a conservative, he was a conservationist. He
Yeah.
believed in so much of
Yeah, he
those.
started the national park system, right?
I don't quote me on that. I don't know.
I think so. And he was, he hated monopolies. He was a
Incidental.
trust buster. But my
Yeah.
favorite thing is when he gets shot by an assassin and says, "Let me just give my speech. I'll go to the
Yeah.
hospital afterwards."
Right.
And he gave an hour speech.
Yeah.
And the speech is actually what saved his life because it was super long. It was because they gave long speeches back then. It was folded up in his pocket and it slowed down the bullet. So I
Uh-huh.
guess he was reading from like a speech that had all these like a burnt bullet hole that went through.
Fill in the blanks. Yeah. No, quite the character. And what we wouldn't give for someone like him right now. What do you think is the leader that we need? Who, no one comes to mind. No
Well,
one
I
that we
mean,
follow.
everybody talks about Newsom for 2028, but he has huge electoral problems in
Mhm.
that he's governor of the state of California.
That's
That
a
hasn't
minus.
always been a problem.
Right,
Reagan,
Reagan. Yeah.
Nixon, you know, but I mean, he seems pretty, you know, he seems pretty liberal. So he would have to somehow show his enough non-liberal
Yeah.
cred to win over independents.
The hot,
Um,
harder on crime type of mentality
yeah, I mean,
on the
he's
border.
got great hair. He's a good-looking guy. Hair is a huge advantage in an election. Um, Reagan, Kennedy,
Looks the part. Yep.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
I guess we can't use Kamala Harris anymore because she didn't prevail. Um,
Yeah.
but so I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping he figures out how to run by 2028, or somebody else does. Like I don't know, Josh Shapiro, um, even like frickin' Fetterman. I like
Yeah.
Fetterman because he seems to be like one of those good psychopaths. Like he's what 6'6" or six.
He does not
He's
care what you think about him.
yeah,
Bless his heart. Yes. Well, okay. So with the main gripe though is the shortening of the days and more dark than light. So that the one thing that we can encourage people to is get out in the sunlight while you can.
yeah. I
And
should do that because I with the social media it keeps sucking me back in like hour after hour till I don't get out of the house till like 4 p.m. or later. And then like my time is limited. You talked about the UK. People in the UK are really screwed in the winter because they're like
yeah,
700, 1,000 miles closer to the North Pole than we are. So their days are extra short.
right.
And I mean, no wonder like so many of our Christmas traditions come from the UK because they really have to overdo it because their winters are extra miserable.
Yeah. They're not big on food though, if it's a food holiday.
I don't know. They got the puddings, which is pudding is their name for a dessert.
Yep.
And they have geese.
Yeah.
They
Have
like
you ever cooked a goose?
yeah. I
They're
mean yeah.
very oily, very, yeah. There's more of that than meat.
And they have pubs. Pubs are really
They
interesting.
have pubs. Yes.
With their little warm, cozy spaces with low ceilings because they were built in like 17 something when people were shorter and
Yeah.
people huddle in these spaces and they probably watch soccer now, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they just drink like
I was
disgusting.
in London during the British Open and nobody had it in the pubs on TV. The one of the major golf tournaments, and I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yeah,
But I
it
had
is.
more experience in pubs in Ireland, but it's the same thing. Darts. My wife came home one day and I was watching darts on television because I had been playing earlier, and she said, "Oh no, not another sport."
But like pubs are just like little places to share a space with other people.
Right, and it can be warmer than it is outside. and you don't mind that it's dark outside. Yeah. So I think the pub community is of solace. Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked in U.S. bars for frickin' forever, and when I worked in them, guys in bars had an agenda. They were looking to hook up. It's where you hooked up. So that gave bars and nightclubs a bad, edgy energy. So I worked in a ton of straight clubs, and then I ended up working in a gay club, and the energy was so much better. The women, it was a gay club that was taken over by straight people because they had the best DJs, dance floor, sound system, and the and
Of
it was
course.
yeah, and the women. The last time I hooked up with somebody, not my wife, was a woman I met in that bar, in the gay bar, because the women are not as like they're less on edge because they're not going to get hit on by creepy guys.
Right. Right. All right, Rick. I think we've covered a lot of territory.
All right.
We're going to get some sun, and 10 a.m. is a great time to get sun. It's you know it, it's not going to burn you because I have to be careful about that.
Right.
But it's bright, so if you can schedule some time in your life, 10 a.m. to go for a walk or to sit in your backyard if you have one, something like that. Get some, get vitamin D.
Yeah, no, I'll just go to the gym, though. That means I have to work out with the morning people who those people,
They're serious.
yeah, they're too serious for me, but that's okay.
All right. Thanks again, Rick.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. That was our anger specialist from LA, Rick Rosner. And this has been this segment of Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, and I thank you. And I want you to remember, what works for me may not work for you, but what works for me is a deep breath. Helps me calm down. Welcome to this episode, season 8, season 2, sorry, episode 8. And this segment is about how we can use yogic methods to calm ourselves down. And because I need some help, I've asked a yoga teacher, therapist, and instructor to join me today. Yudhishthira, hello. Thank you for coming and helping us out.
You're welcome, my friend. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I also think that we're moving up to chakras. We did chakra 1, 2, and 3. And if you want to see those videos, go to the website scrolling across the bottom of your screen, airu.tv, and you'll be able to see them in all the seasons, all the episodes up to now. But I think we're on chakra 4, which I think of as the heart chakra.
It is.
Okay. All right. So and the essence of what I'm learning from you is that we're trying to get the energies to rise in our bodies. And so it's an integration of all of the chakras and the general rising of our energy. And I think of it as our vibration. So
that is in a sentence or two exactly right. One thing that is I think important to understand and to grasp, at least from my perspective and from the standpoint of yoga, is that this is not a theoretical model of something. It is the reality upon which we are built, and that the physical reality that we see within our bodies, the central nervous system in particular, but all of the nerves in our body are carrying energy, and that energy is more true to who we are than the physical manifestation of it. And that alone creates a real challenge for us, because there is so much that appears real in the world around us.
Yes.
And yet, the limited range of what we call real science, nonetheless, we are well aware at that level of real science that the appearance of matter is illusory. That if you simply get close enough, that what you see as being one solid thing ends up breaking down into, of course, smaller and smaller levels of organization coming to the cell. But even within the cell, you have smaller levels of organization.
Sure.
And when you begin to look at what those cells are made of, they're made of molecules, proteins, amino acids, carbohydrates, lipids, things like that. But if you take those molecules and pull them apart, you end up at the level of atoms.
Right.
And at the level of atoms, you begin to realize that the distance between the nucleus of an atom and the electron shells around it is really vast. I mean, it's much more space than it is stuff.
Right.
And that the stuff that is made of the electron, its mass is like so infinitesimally small to be insignificant. And that the heaviest part of an atom, neutrons and protons, are themselves hardly there.
Right.
And that they end up being made up of even smaller particles that literally go between reality, that is a physical reality, and energy realities.
Right.
And they make that transition easily. That is the truth.
Right.
And yoga has been based upon this truth throughout the millennia. So thousands of years, this reality has been known. I wanted to start today in terms of talking about the heart chakra. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt because I want to get started on the heart chakra too, but you made me think of, in our physical world, the way we calm people down is slap their faces.
Yeah.
But in the yogic world, what we're talking about is calming ourselves down by concentrating on the energy that you're speaking of. And the energetic sources that we cannot see, cannot reproduce in a lab perhaps, but are real. And these are the things that have helped me to calm myself down even when agitated or anxious. It's one of those things that you have to almost suspend disbelief in order to think, yes, this is real, this exists. And then when you experience it, you no longer have to wonder. It's true.
Well, your reference to having someone slap you in the face to get your attention is actually a good use of the material world.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's
it works
really necessary.
Yeah.
And most of us are able to learn and make connections between our learned experiences. There are people in the world who we now know are far more prevalent than we thought, people who are autistic in particular, who do not have the same grasp on the material world that we do.
Right.
It can be a blessing, but can also be a real challenge for the rest of us. And so, for example, for those people, a slap on the cheek has no value because they do not have a reference point, which is in the material world. They're operating very differently. I don't want to get too far off track here because of the fact that it's absolutely perfect because of the fact that it illustrates that sometimes we do get so far disconnected from the reality we are in, which is the body we're in, the people around us, the stuff around us, the situations we're in, that sometimes we, including our heart, can get so out of control that it takes something dramatic to bring us back.
Right.
And I actually want to start in terms of speaking about the heart chakra in something that may seem like disconnected, but I'll explain a little bit. And it's the yogic view of how our mind is constructed. and I will use some classic yoga images along the way.
Okay.
The mind, and I'm not talking about Western psychology here. I'm talking about the mind, which is the vessel, the material manifestation of consciousness. All right, the
Okay.
brain, central nervous system. The mind works like this: that it has three basic parts. And I'll give you the Sanskrit words that go along with that. The first is manas. Now, I know that word mana ends up in many
Yes.
Romance languages being the hand, like in French. I think manas is literally the hands, and it is that part of the mind that reaches out and identifies. For example, if we are standing at the edge of a field, and in that field there is something out there, the mind says there's something out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's all that part of the mind does, manas. The second part of the mind is called buddhi, as in the Buddha.
Right.
Buddhi refers to discrimination. That was the Buddha's ability to discriminate that which was true from that which was not.
Right.
And to remain calm, while doing so.
Right.
And so buddhi is the discriminating faculty of the mind. So mana says there's something out there in that field. The buddhi part of the mind then says it's a horse.
Mm-hmm. Not a tree, but a horse.
Yes. And it could be something else. There might be a tree out there as well.
Right.
But the buddhi is going to identify things individually.
Right.
Everything is good. In fact, it all works great. Even the third part, which is called ahamkara. Ahamkara is Ahamkara. Ahamkara. Oftentimes is referred to as the ego. And again, nothing bad.
Right.
The mind sees something there in the field. It identifies it as a horse. Ahamkara says, that's my horse.
Hmm.
All right. Everything is totally good. No problem.
Right.
But what Yogananda did was to bring one more part into the mind, which is actually the heart.
Mm.
And that part is called chitta, chitta, chitta. And that is the feeling quality, which says, when connected to the other parts of the mind, there's something out there in the field. It's a horse. It's my horse. And I'm only happy when I have my horse under my control.
Mm.
If the horse were taken from me, I would no longer be happy.
Mm.
And so those are the four parts. And I wanted to say that the first three parts are classically taught in any version of yoga, whether it's Swami Vivekananda or Swami Satchidananda, Swami Shivananda, any of the well-known yoga teachers. And I'm not talking about yoga postures.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, I'm talking about the real gurus who
Right.
are out there. Amma, in today's world, Sri Ravi Shankar, they're all going to be teaching that same basic thing.
Right.
But what Yogananda did was to take Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutras, his second Yoga Sutra was this: Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirod. All right. So the yogas part is the practice of yoga.
Right.
All right. And we're not talking just hatha yoga postures, but meditation, mantra, affirmation, chanting, meditation. These are the tools of yoga. And yoga, chitta, calm, and chitta vritti nirod. Chitta vritti nirod. Those three words. Nirod is the calming. Vrittis are the whirlpools of desire.
Mm.
The whirlpools of thought that ends up going around and around and around. And
Which we can relate to.
yeah, we all have it going on.
Right.
And so, but yoga is a way to calm. And what it means literally within the heart center in particular is that it is about taking the heart. Now, the heart is just an amazing concept. The physical organ is a reflection of what the energy center does. The heart contains the vital essence of the human body, the blood, and the oxygen carrying molecules, the hemoglobin, that carries oxygen to every cell of the body. And of course, it has two main parts. And the heart center, the heart chakra, anahat, which means unstruck. It's like a bell that rings without being struck.
Mm.
And so the anahat center will spread throughout our consciousness whatever it contains. And all you need to know is what happens when you feel righteous anger.
Mm. That's going to be on my tombstone. His anger was righteous.
Well, you feel it literally in your fingers and toes. You feel it in every cell of your body.
Yes.
And you have to do something, which if it's really anger and you're out of control, you may hit something. My dad was a wonderful man and had many wonderful qualities, and he seldom lost control. However, there was a time when he had done something that was so abysmally wrong, having to do with second chakra, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
but it destroyed his marriage. And he was having to leave the home, and his wife, my stepmother, was there, and I stayed with her. But my dad, who almost never lost control, was so filled with anger and self-deprecation and remorse that he took his hand and put it through a glass window. This is a man who I never saw him strike anybody. But he was so filled with anger towards himself, he put his hand through the door, cut himself so badly, that he ended up having to live with that experience as his body healed, and his fingers never curled properly thereafter. My point is that the heart is very capable of infinite expansion for whatever it contains. One of the things that I have brought us back to again and again is a book that I mentioned. I probably showed it to you last time, called The Hidden Story of the Mahabharata. And it is the story of these 5 righteous brothers who are all filled with great qualities. And they relate to the chakras. And the lowest chakra is the 2 lower chakras are twins. And their father, by the way, their fathers were twins.
Mm-hmm.
And the lowest chakra is the brother named Sahadev. And his strength lies in his ability to do what is right to do in the world, the yamas, which we did last season.
Right.
His stepbrother, or his twin brother, the second chakra is Nakula, and his quality are the niyamas, the ability to behave properly within yourself. All right. So the lower chakra is about not causing harm. It is about not lying. It is about not being greedy, not even hoarding what is rightfully yours. And it is about controlling the senses, bringing them in.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is about these qualities of taking what is challenging in the world and making it good, turning your attention inward to pay attention, being contented with what's going on, of being in a place of devotion in your life. where you are always thinking of the divine. Then you come up to chakra number 3 and you get to the quality of fire, and that's the brother Arjuna. When you get to the heart, this brother, it's interesting, in the story of the Mahabharata, his name is Bhima, B-I-M-A. Bhima is a giant. He's big. He is strong. He can pull up trees by their roots and use them to do battle.
Wow. Okay.
He is powerful. When the 5 brothers and their one wife, Draupadi, and their mother, Kunti, when they gather food and have a meal, Bhima, the heart, gets half the meal. The other 6 people get the rest of the other half. And that's what Bhima requires. Bhima requires a lot of attention, a lot of energy, a lot of sustenance. So it's worthwhile to consider that we want to feed our heart. And we know that it's capable of great expansion.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So that when it comes to the heart, and again, I realize that when I talk about these things, that it's going to sound like this is some sort of a mythical model. And indeed, the Mahabharata is all allegory.
Sure. Right. Of course.
It's all allegory, just as the Greek myths are allegorical, but they are pointing to higher truths, higher realities, simply brought down into a level that makes us, allows us to comprehend them and to get a teaching. Jesus did the same thing. In the Beatitudes, when Jesus came and it said he spoke to the multitudes, but then they also said he took his disciples into the forest. He gave the disciples the Beatitudes. He may have given them to the masses as well. But the first 2 Beatitudes, and this again ties into the heart, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The poor in spirit makes it sound as if I don't have much spiritually going on, but it's not speaking about that. It says, I am uninvolved with the material parts of my life to the point that if they are taken away from me, that horse, if it's taken away from me, I remain at peace.
Right.
So that is what it is to the possessions we have, hold them lightly. And because otherwise the heart contracts. It can't expand properly. The second of the Beatitudes that Jesus gave, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And mourning sounds to us like sadness, like despair. But mourning is really more about yearning for the divine. And that's where the heart comes in. What we yearn for is this divine love. And we seek it outwardly and unconsciously, thinking that we will be satisfied with the things of the world. And it takes sometimes lifetimes to realize, oh, I'm going to try it this way this lifetime. I don't remember that I tried it another way, but this time it seems totally proper. I'm going to get as much money as I can, and then I'll be happy. I met a man at the gym not long ago. I may have mentioned him before. And, you know, he's a little older than I am, and but he was in good shape. And I enjoyed, you know, I liked him. He walked with a lot of energy. And so we introduced ourselves. And he said, you know, my name is, and he gave me his name. And he referenced it to a great 20th century architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. And but then he reached into his pocket. He wanted to really show me who he was, and he pulled out this key fob, which was to a Bentley. And he wanted me to go, ooh.
Yeah.
So I did. I went, ooh, because I knew that he was really invested in having a Bentley, that he had succeeded in this lifetime. And I did not pull out my key fob, which was to my Chevy Bolt, you know? And say, Ooh. But this is a way that chitta really works in the heart, and it is to say that we can even be attached in a way that is sometimes called spiritual pride. For example, you can be living your life so well. I've been meditating so long. I'm so good at
Look at
meditating.
me. Yes.
Look at what a good meditator I am. And
I'm more spiritual than you.
yes, exactly. That's it. And so all that is about the heart chakra. And what we want, and by the way, Bhima, the brother who represents the heart center, was always loyal to his eldest brother, who is represented here. And it's the reason I have the name I have, Yudhishthira, is that is the name of the elder brother. But the heart would always tend to go out of control and then need to be pulled back in. But it was always his older brother and his younger brother, Arjuna and Yudhishthira, who would be able to contain him. The younger brother, fiery self-control. The older brother, calmness. And so these qualities all come together in a heart that is expanded, but it's expanded towards the divine. We can have that expansion experience as human beings with no knowledge of yoga, no religious training whatsoever, no reference point, no reading. All we need to do is to go to a place in nature where we can sit and become still.
Yes.
And that is because the natural love of our heart is just that, it's natural.
People report this going into the sequoias, the national forests, there, the ocean, that you can think of the Grand Canyon. All of these things are majestic in their own way and calming in their own way.
Yes.
And as you were pointing out, expansive. And so
and it's just, so learning to work with his heart chakra, oftentimes one of the best practices for people, I will say that some of the things we've done, for example, chanting the sound of Om, that quality of yearning for the divine that we feel in our heart, it can't be manufactured, but devotional practices will nurture that. So that having an altar in your home, putting fresh flowers on the altar, people who go to the graves of their ancestors care for the grave with flowers or foods, like Dia de los Mortos, the Day of the Dead. It's a celebration in which we honor, we bring food and we bring the memory of these things. So lifted up to the level of the divine, and what we end up with is just bringing to Divine Mother, bringing to Heavenly Father, the desire to yearn for their presence. Even if we don't feel that yearning, we have the desire to have that yearning. And we express it by putting candles on the altar, lighting them, putting flowers on the altar, having incense that we burn. It's all just a way of cultivating in our heart the natural love. And that love is a capital L. Love is one of the most misused and overused words in all languages, because I love ice cream. I love for this gentleman, I love my Bentley. I love my horse. Those are not love. I love noticing compassion and kindness in others. I love when I feel that just natural tendency of my heart to be compassionate and kind to someone else. That is a reflection of God's love, the divine love within us. And So it is that it's quite natural, and I want to sort of close here with some of the qualities. The heart center is oftentimes referenced in relation to the physical thoracic spine. Its physical location, by the way, is anatomically behind the heart organ and in front of the lumbar spine. So think about that space between those two landmarks.
Okay.
Its Sanskrit name is Anahat. Again, I mentioned that, the unstruck center.
Right.
And when one goes deep in meditation, and the heart center, because each of these centers has a sound, and they can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
This is not some sort of a made up sort of a thing. It is an actual something I've experienced, that the heart center can be heard as a sound of if you can picture the big gongs,
Mm-hmm.
and if you think about the gong having been struck,
Right.
but the sound continues,
Right.
that
Sure.
is the sound of the heart. It is said that the sound of church bells in the material world is just a way. Remember, of course, or that when the bells in an old church were pulled by a
Yes.
rope,
Yes.
the ringing would go on for quite some time.
Sure.
And that is again a call to come back, call to come into the heart. And so that is the sound. In terms of the planet, this is the planet Venus, is the planet of the heart. Astrologically, it ends up being, I never keep these things in mind, Libra and Taurus. And so that is about the heart center. And it is once again about bringing the qualities of the lower centers inward and upward. And yoga's chitta vritti nirod. If you know one yoga sutra, that's the one to know.
Okay.
Because it is yoga calms the tendency of the heart's feelings connected to the actions of the mind that tend to bind us to the material world, which is essentially a false view of creation. So I think that is about it.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a lot to ponder. So that was and there were some things there that you mentioned that I realize in my own life I'm not paying enough attention to this. There are some things that naturally I can identify as calming and peaceful, and but tying it together the way you did, it's going to be very helpful for me. So I appreciate it.
I'm glad for that, Jim, and I hope it has some value for anybody else who's watching. We talked about this last season, but there are these three primary paths of yoga, and one of which is Gyan Yoga. And Gyan Yoga is the most challenging path of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
It is wisdom yoga. It is having the wisdom to know what is true from that which is not true. And those of us who tend to have a strong mental or intellectual bent to us, you do, I do, that there's a tendency to think that, therefore I'm going to be a Gyan Yogi. Intellect is not the same as wisdom.
Right. I have
And
learned that
every Gyan Yogi, every Jnana Yogi will also be a strong Bhakti Yogi, that is a devotional yogi.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the heart of wisdom is to realize that it is the heart's tendency to reach outside itself for satisfaction, relationships, addictions, food, possessions. It's that tendency that needs to be corrected. But then, when that chitta is brought upward to wisdom, then we are compassionate, caring, and wise. So.
Right. Excellent. Much for me to ponder. So thanks again, and I will say goodbye to the viewing audience.
Okay.
Until next time.
All right. Blessing, Jim. Thank you so much.
Blessings to you too. Bye. All right. You just sort of gave at least me a lot to think about in this episode. But if there is things that you want to talk about, if you want to, I'm looking now for what I'm just about to show on the bottom of the screen. If I can find it. There it is. Okay. So I've changed the scroll on the bottom of the screen to info@airu.tv. And if you have any questions, you want me to relay them to you, Yisra, send a message to us there, and we can go from there in terms of incorporating it into our future episodes. So this is episode 8 of season 2. Thank you so much for watching and helping us all to calm down. Welcome to the final segment of Calm Down. And I want to introduce to you, my loyal listeners and viewers, Divya Lovewise, that wise yogi. And I would like you, at the end of every show, I'm a little bit agitated and worked up and all that kind of stuff. And I was wondering if there's something that you could do to calm me down. Could you just say goodbye to us in any way that you see fit?
Sure, I would love to.
I will take off and let you do that. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, bring yourself into a comfortable seated position, feeling your feet on the floor and letting your hands rest in your lap. Palms up or palms down is a great way to start bringing yourself back into center and focus with your own divine energy and letting go of anything that might have wanted to stick to us throughout the day that may be energy we don't want to carry throughout the day. So having this basic position, feeling grounded, even closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one of the ways we can bring ourselves back to center is observing with our senses what we can feel, the temperature of the air in the room, observing any sounds that you hear. Noticing any smells in the air. And then bring your awareness to your breath. As though you're watching it from the inside out. Watching the inhale wash into the body. And watching the exhale wash out of the body. Just like the waves of the ocean as they wash onto the shore. And if you find your mind still wandering, you can even place one hand on your lower belly and one hand on your heart so that you can feel with your hands this breath washing in and washing out. And with your mind's eye, visualize this inhalation and exhalation as an internal shower, clearing away your energy so that it's refreshed, it's rejuvenated, and it's restored. Releasing your hands into your lap, just give yourself a few seconds of pause in this return to peace, enjoying it. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes, wiggling your fingers and your toes, feeling grounded in your body, grounded in the best part of yourself. And you can go out into the world and carry that best part in the forefront of your mind and your heart.